Hello, good recent afternoon, everybody. My name is Chris Cooley, and I am the ISM-Chicago Supplier Diversity Committee Chairperson. I'll be moderating, proctoring this conversation today, and just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for registering. Thank you for giving some of your time, your lunch hour, maybe, to hear from our amazing panelists on some crucial information that will help not just you better understand, but your supply base better understand how to prepare themselves to do business. So we're going to wait for just a second to make sure others can move from their maybe 11 o'clock meetings over. But as you do settle in, maybe you yourself are getting your lunch ready right now, but take a moment and add into the chat just who you are, who you're representing from your company, if you like the position that you do, and where you're calling from. This is a obviously Chicago-based organization, so presuming that you are here in Chicago, but maybe you're someplace else in the country right now. So please do take a moment, share that information, and we'll get started with our event here shortly. Hello, Demetrius. Nice. Thank you for being here today. And I see Vincent Rodriguez is, I'm still getting a triple dot saying that you're connecting to your audio. So I'm hoping that you can hear us and that you're here with us as well. All right, well, we are almost 5 minutes in, so I think now is a great time to kick it off because we have a lot of content to cover, and we'll catch up those that join us later in the hour. So with that said, let me just give you a quick look at our agenda for today. Here's kind of the welcome session, and just to inform you again of who ISM Chicago is, some of the value proposition that we provide, introduction of our panelists. I will review some of the bios that they have provided, and then kind of dive into the meat of this session. We have identified these two areas that are critical for the success of small businesses, and that is ensuring that your company is financially prepared. Also, ensuring that you have good risk mitigation measures in place as well, and that you're ready to pitch who you are, what your company is, and how you can support in order to best win business. And then we'll close it out with a couple of Q&A opportunities and some thank yous. In full transparency, this is a great group. We are here as servants first, essentially. I think everybody, as I read through our profiles, you'll hear that. And so we're here for you. So don't wait towards the end to ask your questions. Don't wait to come off mute if you have a question. We'll be interested in your input and to make sure that we can have a dialogue. This slide deck is here to ensure that we have some direction and focus. But if we don't get past slide 2 because we have such good questions, like I think everybody on this panel is going to be elated. So, Brandon, thank you for joining. Just to kind of recircle back, please introduce yourself in the chat with who you are, where you're coming from, and what you do as well to help us understand who our audience is today. So ISM-Chicago, here's a great plug for who we are. We're a nonprofit organization that's been around Chicago for over 100 years. And we are an organization with the goal to connect, share, and grow within and outward as professionals. So we focus on supply chain and supply management individuals, supporting the community, the businesses that hire us, and also the individuals to grow in their profession. So great to have both in-person and virtual events. Should you be interested, we also lead kind of industry certifications that provide great thought leadership, and that ISM Chicago, should your companies be interested, be happy to set up trainings to be able to achieve these certifications that are industry recognized. John, thank you so much for joining us today. If you would not mind, take a moment when you have a second and add in, just kind of follow Brandon and Demetrius's lead, and let us know who you are and where you're calling from.
Yeah, hi everyone. Sorry for the late notice or showing up late. I had a meeting that ran over. So I'm John Biscobi. I am living in Chicago. I work for Wesco Distribution. Became a CPSM last year, and just trying to learn more and get a little more involved. So yeah, that's why I'm here. Let's see here.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I do strategic or I do global sourcing. I work at the private label for Wesco, and I more or less do a lot of global procurement for our own brands. So
Awesome. Great, great. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
yep.
So, and John, you just teed me up for the best question next. So as we've all introduced ourselves, come off mute, put it in the chat. Like, what are you hoping to gain from today? You've seen the posting, you know who our speakers are, what their bio is, what organizations they represent, but help us understand, like, what's a takeaway that you want to be answered in today's event, and make sure that we either kind of drill down on that when we cover it, or make sure that we can bring it in as new content. So we'll just take a pause. Again, this is the lunch hour for some of us. So maybe as you've put down the fork or taking the soup out of the microwave, this is an opportunity for you to let us know. And I think as well, for us as presenters and as the leaders of this event, our desire for you is kind of to ensure that you have an understanding of your supply base. We represent small businesses, women-owned businesses, but really those businesses that are large enough to do the work, but also small enough to care. And as maybe this is a chance for you to better understand your supply chain, or how to get your business to that next level, this is kind of that session for you. Okay.
Well, thanks for that, Chris. One of the reasons I'm here, I just wanted to chime in real quick,
Thanks,
is
Brandon.
because I'm part of ISM. I've been an ISM member for a while now, but I am also a small and diverse business myself. In the chat there, I put in that, I'm a procurement consultant. I work with, companies to execute on their strategic contract negotiations. And I do that primarily through my own business. And so part of what I'm wondering is how, as an ISM member, can I support small businesses and diverse businesses? But then also, as a diverse business myself, what other ways can I get involved with ISM or receive some sort of support in some areas? Or simply just network and get to know other small businesses out there. So really just here to learn and absorb the information you guys are willing to share.
Thank you, Brandon, as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, to stay on track, here we have our illustrious panelists today. I'll take a moment and just introduce themselves. Should there be other things that you would like to add on? I know that not only are you well informed of who you are, but you each know each other very well. So please feel free to add in some glorious flowers when appropriate. But first off, we have Willette Legrand, who is the District Director of Illinois District Office for the U.S. Small Business Administration, or better known as SBA. Willette joined in February of 2024 and is responsible for promoting small business resources across Illinois, of which she is in the middle of at this very moment, and making sure that our small businesses are receiving and accessing capital, counseling and training, government contracting guidance, international exporting, and disaster relief. Prior to joining the SBA, Ms. Legrand served as the Deputy Division Chief for the Census Bureau and Program Manager for NASA's government-wide acquisition of IT services from small businesses. Moving forward from left to right, we have Georgia Marsh, Chief Development Officer for Women's Business Development Center, or as we'll refer in the future conversation as WBDC, ensuring that the suppliers, the organizations are receiving funding and supporting organizational operations with their culture, fulfilling commitments, and making sure that that donors are still coming in and that corporate relationships are being met. Prior to WBDC, Georgia operated her own advisory and consulting business and worked several years as a director in KPMG's Privacy and Information Protection Security Practice group. And moving to the last picture on this page to the far right, Karen Goldner is the managing director of Established Business Services at WBDC. She's been there since 2015, counseling small businesses from startup to established on best business practices. Prior to joining WBDC, Karen worked in for-profit and nonprofit organizations that serve small businesses in Indiana, including the first for-profit technology-focused angel fund in Northeast Indiana, a small privately held defense manufacturer, and various community and economic development roles in the Fort Wayne city government. So with that said, I'll pause. Would anybody else like to add anything to this moment before we move on? And I take care of my parched throat. All right. So kicking it off, Willette, I'm really excited to have you on this call today. And really just kind of asking you the first big question. What is the most important step in getting ready for business opportunity? And before you continue on, please do come off mute.
First of all, I'd like to thank ISM for the opportunity to be here and to talk about resources that are available through SBA. And to answer your question, I will say this. It's first really important to understand what resources are available, thus the purpose of this call. I have in my career owned 2 small businesses, and I would probably be on the other side of this call had I recognized the incredible resources that are available, not only from the federal government, but the state and the local government. So first, as a small business owner, you recognize that you're not doing this alone. It certainly feels that way. You feel like you're on this journey alone, but you're not, because there are services out there at all different levels, and even in the private sector as well, that you can avail yourself of. And so you said in your opening remarks, Chris, that we are all civil servants, and that I am proud to say that I am certainly part of that club. So we exist to serve. All of the services that you will receive through the Small Business Administration are free, no charge.
Thank you. And I'm really excited to kind of see what some of these resources are that you've shared with us that will be made available as well after this call today. So kind of kicking it off, some SBA resources.
Okay. So the first thing, so if you remember nothing else, your number one resource, your anchor, if you will, is going to be SBA.gov. And let me just step back and say there are numerous federal agencies that serve small businesses, but no federal agency has the absolute core mission of serving and advocating for small businesses, which is the number one tool that we use to enhance our economy. So please go to SBA.gov. If you forget all of the other resources, this is the one that I want you to really, really remember, because you can find everything right there on SBA.gov. However, I do want to call out a couple of things. SBA does not do this work alone. We, like what I'm sharing with small businesses, recognize that it takes a village. It takes really, really good key partners to do this incredible work. As I stated, I am the district director for the state of Illinois. There are 68 district offices across this great nation. And so I just serve the state of Illinois, and I do that with some incredible partners. I'm proud to say that I have one of those incredible partners here with us today, and that's the Women's Business Centers. We have 4 women business centers in the state of Illinois. We also have small business development centers. We have 41 of those, and we have 5 SCORE chapters and 1 Veterans Business Outreach Center. Now, there are, as I said earlier, there are other partners, but these partners have a particular commitment. They are not only they're funded, but they are hyper focused on really serving and supporting small businesses. What SBA does is they provide guarantees for our lenders. Oftentimes people hear that and they say, oh, so the SBA will guarantee me a loan. And let me just explain what that means. SBA used to do what's called direct lending in the past, but they no longer do that. So we have an incredible network of over 2,000 lenders in the state of Illinois for whom we work with. They are what's called SBA-backed lenders. And what that means is that because SBA is backing these lenders, it helps to reduce the lender's risk. And that's the number one thing that lenders are concerned with is risk, how to mitigate that risk. Small businesses, they represent a large risk, which is why SBA comes in and they say, okay, and we're willing to, we're willing to guarantee 85% or 75% of a given loan in the event that the borrower defaults on that loan. And so consequently, that helps to mitigate the lender's risk, and so they do a lot more. Additionally, those terms are generally much, much better than what you would find on the commercial market as well. To aid you in that effort, we also have on our website a lender matching. What lender matching does is helps you to just sort of identify who are these lenders out there. We first encourage you to start with the lender that you currently do most of your personal checking and lending with already, because you already have an established relationship with them. But we also offer you information on other lenders that are out there. We also even provide on our website who are some of our top 10 lenders are. So a great resource. One of the priorities, I'm going to move quickly on, one of the priorities that this administration now has is manufacturing. We're hyper focused on making sure that we're bringing back manufacturing jobs to this country. And so to that end, we've done a couple of things. Number one, we have put out grants, 3 at this point, which are right in the process of being reviewed, so that we can help manufacturers. These grants are providing technical assistance to small business owners. And so we're hoping to have those grants released pretty soon. Again, these grants are not going directly to small businesses, but rather to organizations that will support them. We also recognize that there are small businesses out there that are very, very concerned about the Buy America, Make in America initiative, which requires them to purchase supplies for the items that they're making in the US. And so recognizing that, what we have done at SBA is pull together 3 incredible resources. These are 3 powerful databases that have come together. So if you're a manufacturer currently and you're concerned about tariffs that may be coming and your ability to sustain your business in the wake of these tariffs, what we have done is put together these 3 databases into one, and that's the Make Onshoring Great Again portal, which allows manufacturers to go in there and source their supplies. So it's a direct source to US-based organizations for which you can source your materials and then continue your production without being impacted by the tariffs. Disaster assistance. I'm going to talk a bit more about this later on, but I will just say this. The one thing that I want small businesses to recognize is that the SBA plays a very significant role in disaster assistance. So the SBA does disaster loans, direct loans, disaster assistance loan. We partner with FEMA on a lot of that work, but we do disaster assistance loan not only to small businesses, because again, what the premise behind this work is that when a disaster hits, when there's a presidential declaration and as a result of a disaster, what we recognize is that economic viability of that community has just reduced dramatically. So SBA's mission is, of course, to increase the economic viability all across the nation. And so we step in and we give direct loans to help businesses recover quickly from a disaster. But we don't just do that for small businesses, because the small businesses make up a significant portion of that community, but it doesn't make up all of it. So there are also renters in there. There are also nonprofits in there. There are homeowners in there, and we provide loans to those folks because those are your consumers. So we need to try to help them become whole again so that they can consume again, and thus, of course, igniting that economic engine. The last significant resource that I'd like to talk about is the Red Tape Hotline. It is managed through our Office of Advocacy, which again is the independent voice for small businesses. Their a singular focus and purpose is really to advocate on behalf of small businesses. It could be anything from small businesses are being just inundated by the tons and tons of regulations that are coming as it relates to getting certifications, specifically CMMI certifications, or it could be any number of things. And so our small business, our Office of Advocacy works directly with Congress to sort of put forth not initiatives, but recommendations and hopefully, in some case, policy changes that will help unburden small businesses so they can get back to the business of being in business. And then an example of that is that right now we're working to put forth a bipartisan bill that will increase our one of our loan products from 5 million to 10 million specifically for manufacturing. So that's an example. And we're doing that because we heard directly from small businesses. This is what we need. That cap of 5 million is a little bit too low. So we needed that cap to go higher. So in a nutshell, that's it. But if you heard nothing that I said, please remember SBA.gov. It has a wealth of resources, all of the resources that I've spoken about today. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Willette. Where to start? So I am impressed overwhelmed with all of the resources you just covered. And, out of just some personal curiosity, from my supplier engagement, formerly known as supplier diversity mind, are these resources aren't just available to those that are registered, certified through the SBA. So it's not that 8As only, it's not the hub zone. This is anybody who kind of meets that NAICS code employment thresholds. Is that accurate?
It's more than accurate. Currently, there are about 1.3 to 1.5 million small businesses that registered in the state of Illinois. It is available to all small businesses in the state of Illinois. If you come into our office or you come into one of our resource partners, the Women's Business Centers, for example, and you're not yet a small business, you're simply in the ideation phase, you're thinking about it. There are services that are available to you also as well. I mean, most of the services are available to you. So it's not just you have to be registered or you have to be a women-owned small business or you have to be 8A as you indicated. It is open to all business. We are trying to drive and ignite the economic engine. So all are welcome.
Yeah. Awesome. And for that matter as well, I know as WBDCs on this call, I know so much of the value that you bring to certifying women-owned businesses goes beyond that community and also supports, all who come, who benefit from your programming as well. Would you mind talking a little bit more about that?
Go ahead, Georgia.
Absolutely. And, this is a good slide to have up. And first of all, thank you for having us. I'm tag teaming today with Karen from our organization. And we actually work hand in hand with the Small Business Administration and with Willette. The WBDC operates 3 of the 4 Illinois Women Business Centers, 3 Small Business Development Centers, and various other entities that either generate from the SBA or some of the other federal organizations. We are 40 years old and provide programs and services for every phase of the business life cycle, whether it's, as Willette mentioned, you're in the ideation stage, to whether you're in the stage where you're doing succession planning, and everything in between. I think that the point to say is, and Willette said it wonderfully, no business is alone. Every business for sure needs to know that there is free assistance, complimentary assistance to help them in their business journey. Because you may see all of these resources, but as we're going to talk a little bit more about lending, not all money is the same. And the money has to match the business stage. But the WBDC delivers over 14 cohort-based curriculum for every phase of the business life cycle. We do direct lending ourselves. We do it through micro lending, and we also do it through a Kiva Hub, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about later, which is crowdfunding. Our classes and what we do falls into three major areas: technical assistance and training, which is the courses, the ad hoc work, and things of that nature. We also have a very, very robust access to capital program, where we not only teach about finance, business finance, but also a lot of digital literacy for the tools that accompany how you do your financials, and that can help you be more efficient and effective. And then the final area, which you've talked about, and I'll turn it over to my colleague Karen to talk about, is our established business program, which not only includes certification, which is a tool that we have, but also includes capacity building. And we do that in 9 states throughout the Midwest region. I just like to say we may be the WBDC, Women's Business Development Center, and 40 years ago, we focused only on women, but the environment has changed, the businesses have changed. We serve all businesses with all of the tools and all of the zest that we have, along with an expert team of 40 people. Karen, take it away.
Sure. So thank you. And we have always served male clients, just to be really clear. We do have one particular program, the Women's Business Enterprise Certification Program, which is obviously only for women-owned businesses. And to some of you gentlemen, Brandon in particular, I guess I'm just going to say, because I can see your picture, we work with the Chicago Minority Supplier Development Council to help MBEs, minority business enterprises, get certified as well. I also should just give a shout out to Sean Jones, who's not on the call, but is an active ISM member, obviously. When he was with Walgreens 6 years ago, he helped us create a program called Top Shelf, which is, as was described, a capacity building program targeting companies that are selling CPG type products into they're selling CPG products. They want to get more into mass retail. That program has continued to operate. It's continued to be funded by Walgreens very generously, even after Sean left Walgreens. And we had it this morning again, and we've got a bunch of guys in the program as well. So what we do is we do one-on-one business advising, and some of that is just sort of general, right? Like, I'm having these HR issues or whatever, right? I'm growing and I'm not sure how to hire new people or whatever. Some of the programs that we do are more in groups, right? So I mentioned Top Shelf. That's 20 small businesses that are on a Zoom every morning or every Thursday morning for 8 weeks, learning how to develop and refine a pitch, and really learning really specific stuff about the CPG industry. We have some of the other cohorts that Georgia mentioned are going to be a little bit more industry agnostic and are a little bit more general. So for my small business, helping me develop a strategic growth plan, whether my business is a lawn care company or a consulting company or whatever it is. And we have a program that is focused on solopreneurs, sort of a mastermind group, and then we have a bunch of other resources. This morning, our International Trade Center hosted the chief economist for BMO Bank, speaking about tariffs. So just lots of stuff happening. Too much actually for any of us to go to all of it at the center. And we're so grateful for our support, both directly from the SBA, which is the Women's Business Centers that Georgia and Willette both mentioned, and also through the state of Illinois with the Small Business Development Center program. The certification piece that we do is, I think, part of a larger ecosystem of as Chris mentioned, supplier inclusion, it used to be supplier diversity, and now there's lots of different words that mean that. But as he said, having businesses that are big enough to be great suppliers and small enough to care. I would also add, and I'm sure that he would not disagree with me, small enough to be able to be flexible, small enough to be innovative, small enough to represent either your customers or your communities to the extent that that's important. Yeah, Georgia just put another phrase in: responsible sourcing, inclusion,
Yeah.
whatever. Lots of different words that are
Lots of
used now.
things.
A cornucopia.
A
that's out there for us.
cornucopia, that's right, a plethora of words. But those, for many of you working in large organizations, there may be somebody like a Chris in your organization who can be helpful if you are, dealing with a prospective vendor who you might, have a little bit of concerns about, maybe just in terms of, do they need capital? They're calling you all the time and saying, I need paid in 15, or, whatever, right? I mean, maybe there's some issues there. And one of the things that we do an enormous amount of business advising around for our clients is helping them understand what it means to sell to very large organizations, because it's a very different thing in terms of everything, right? And those of you who work in very large organizations, I don't even really need to explain what some of those differences are. The thing that I want everybody to understand coming out of this program is that it is not, you don't have to diagnose it, right? And you certainly don't have to fix it. Like Willette said, remember the SBA.gov website, remember us, the WBDC.org. If we aren't able to help you or somebody that you're referring, we will know who in Chicago we can get them connected with. Yeah, that's what I wanted to just say. And like Brandon, I'll put my scheduling link in the chat in a minute if anybody wants to make an appointment. But more broadly, just, let us know that you've got an issue and we can help.
Thank you. And so as we're kind of coming to the time where we're going to dive into our next topic, I want to make sure that we have a little bit of a visualization on one of the topics that's been brought up a couple of times. And that's, as we work to access capital, there's a little bit of a way that we can approach this, and where are our small suppliers jumping on? Where might they need some help? And so, I would love to kind of get this kind of talked about a little bit more, and maybe some people on the call that haven't even thought about entrepreneurship seriously, barely even have an idea of where to start. Where might this picture kind of start? Where does it take us to?
If I can just mention, all money is not the same. And as Willette mentioned, there are a number of SBA guaranteed loan banks throughout Greater Chicago. The WBDC has had the great success in partnering with them. And by partnerships, we mean that we have reciprocal relationships, so that a client, a small business, may go to the bank and they may not be bank ready, despite having the paperwork, the required paperwork, and many of the other areas that are necessary to get a loan. And the loan officer does not have to say no. What the loan officer can say is, not now, you need some additional business acumen. And in the interim, there may be other opportunities for that small business. So, as whoever is on the phone, whether it's that you're working with a small business or not, you need to look at what we call the capital ladder, or at least have the people who are you'll be talking to are educated. At the bottom of the ladder, and we don't really call it the bottom, is for new businesses a Kiva Hub, which is a crowdfunding type of relationship. And many of our emerging clients have used this technique to get small amounts of money that allow them to start their business and to get some tools, to get other types of things. Then we have community development financial institutions, commonly known as CDFIs. Those are funded through the Department of Treasury and are funded to be able to fund community projects, whether it's small businesses, whether it's housing. They have different relationships than with a regular bank. Than a regular bank does. They have different requirements. There's also microlending, which the WBDC does, which are small loans. You may need a loan for a piece of equipment, but something that you may not be ready for an SBA guaranteed loan, but nonetheless you need something. And then, of course, we have our SBA guaranteed loans, which many of our business partners work on. We work with our clients to be able to get these loans, package them, and to ensure that they have the right understanding, not only of getting the loan, but once they get the loan, how are they going to absorb it, to use it in the best way to continue to build capacity and build their businesses. So, and then of course you have traditional banks. So there's lots of opportunities. Understanding where you are sometimes really takes talking to someone like Karen or talking to another advisor that you establish a relationship with. And I just want to plan something else that Willette said. Not only is it important to use a bank that may know you, but if you don't have a bank, go to a bank. You need to be having banks long before you're ever going to get a loan. You need to establish that relationship, and it needs to be a relationship that can carry you through, because banks are not just for loans. They have products and services, and they have many other opportunities that you can get.
Yeah, I want to just throw in a couple of other things as well, because it's not even always just the source of the lending, but it also can be the kind of loan product or tool. I mean, I remember soon after I was with the center, I was in a workshop, and a woman was very frustrated. She owned a property where her beauty shop was, and she was very frustrated that she had gone to banks and couldn't get a line of credit to remodel her building. Well, a line of credit isn't the right tool to remodel a building. And apparently none of the bankers she had talked to, and my guess is she had talked to two, but whatever, had told her that. So, I mean, that was just a lack of knowledge, right? So what she learned from, along with a lot of other things in this program was, I need to maybe think about a mortgage or, I mean, it was just knowledge, right? Nobody's born knowing this stuff.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so, from the perspective of someone who is going to be buying a lot of stuff from small businesses, your folks, you're probably will need some kind of line of credit type of product, actually for themselves. The further ahead they're planning on this, the better. As Chris said, I worked in a small business loan program over in Northeast Indiana, and one day, and it was a Tuesday, I remember it was a Tuesday, and we made loans. We were a nonprofit lender. This woman comes in, and she was kind of desperate because she had to make payroll on Friday, and she didn't have any money. Well, we couldn't help that. I mean, nobody, so she ended up having to go to a factor, and God only knows what kind of relationship she ended up with that organization. So one of the things that can be super helpful, I think, for small businesses when they're selling to very large organizations is for you to be able to help them just identify what are the medium-term opportunities, right?
Yeah.
So, you may be thinking, okay, this is a small contract now, Fred, and if, just transparently, we might have additional opportunities if things go well. And so you might be thinking about that. And as opposed to calling Fred and saying, well, we've been buying, $50,000 a year from you, and next week I really need like $400,000 worth of stuff from you, because that's the kind of thing that puts businesses out of business.
Yeah. And so what I'm hearing you say is kind of the adage that I often hear for building your network. The
Exactly.
time to fix your roof is not when it's raining,
That's
it's
right.
Exactly.
sunny.
That's
And
right.
so with that in mind, as we kind of continue down the conversation, obviously disaster
Speaking of
recovery
roofs and rain.
is Thank you very much. And so there's a lot of opportunity out there from the SBA through the federal government that can help protect our small businesses during these moments. And what it would be wonderful to kind of hear a little bit more about this, see what kind of support and programs are out there as well.
Certainly love to talk about disaster recovery, but if you don't mind, I'd like to just peel back just a little bit to the loan. Karen and Georgia both said some really made some super salient points. I want to just, echo that, and I'll use this phrase to I'm not as hip as probably I look, but not that I look hip, but my daughter always talks about, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. That applies not only to disaster recovery, but also as relates to loans. You don't want to go for a loan when you're trying to make payroll. You don't want to go for a loan when, your equipment is on the brink of breaking, and I mean like within a week or so. And so one thing that the SBA recognized, there are always indicators in life, and one of those indicators happened to be the PPP, COVID rather. And so when the PPP loan situation went out, we recognized that there were tons and tons of small businesses that were not at the level of readiness to actually apply for a loan. They didn't understand the 5 C's of credit. They didn't understand cash flow. There's so much they didn't understand. And so one of the things that we have put in place is this, are you lender ready? And so I'm not going to go through the slides in the interest of time, but I would encourage you to look at that because it really is designed to get you ready. So that you can have higher success when you do decide to actually go and knock on that lender door and say, hey. And it's really an experiential type of learning where we allow you to do some role modeling. We bring in lenders across the country, and they'll ask you questions. Again, it's very much role modeling. So you'll get a sense of when you're in the hot seat, when you're really in the hot seat, and it is a hot seat, folks, when your customers, not your customers, since I'm not talking to a ton of small businesses right now, but when your clients potentially are in the hot seat, how to get them ready, how to get them comfortable with being uncomfortable and knowing the answers to the questions. So now I'll go into disaster recovery. And again, that statement still applies. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. So again, disaster recovery, you can flip to the next slide, is covered under the Small Business Act. And many folks don't recognize the role that that small business plays. We like to call it the 3 C's and then the D's. So it's the counseling, it's the capital access, and contracting. Those are our 3 C's. And then the D is disaster recovery. Because you could be an incredible business and then something hits you, a national disaster hits you, and you potentially could be out of business. Next slide, please. And so we provide that support. I'm not going to go through all of this. I'm going to leave you with some key points. But again, this doesn't even represent the full deck of disaster recovery. But let me just tell you that there are generally presidential declarations that the president has to make. There's also one on an agency-wide level too. You can see down the list here, but the two that are most common are presidential, which that will spark a lot of loan activity. Then there are things at the agency level. Next slide. And so this sort of gives you sort of that roadmap of what happens. Earlier, I said that we partner with FEMA. So we're not competing with FEMA, we partner with FEMA. One of the things that FEMA will do, just as an example, this is just for your awareness, if there is a natural disaster that is declared by the president, FEMA will require a small business owner or a homeowner or a nonprofit to file with their insurance company first before any loan support kicks in. SBA doesn't necessarily require that. They do not require that. We do encourage you to do that, but we're trying to get you back to whole as soon as possible. So we try to alleviate some of those. I just wanted to just add that. Next slide, please. And so again, what types of loans are out there? They're at the real estate level, they're personal property, economic injury, inventory, machine equipment, active duty, military, different types of loans that are out there. And they're again for not just small businesses, nonprofits, homeowners, renters are also eligible for these loans. Next slide. Again, this pretty much says the same thing, but also gives you the purpose here and also provides you the maximum amount. You see, there are pretty substantial loans, anything from 100,000 up to 2 million. The other thing I wanted to talk about was mitigation. And we talked briefly about mitigation at the top of the hour. One of the things that SBA also does is they provide businesses and nonprofits and homeowners loans for the purpose of mitigating, preventing future loss. So if you recognize that you are severely at risk and you may not have been impacted, but you recognize that you potentially could be, we will provide you loans to get you ready in the event of there being being a disaster. We look at things as what's the probability of this happening, and then we sort of help you mitigate that. And so that's uncommon. I think a lot of folks don't know that, so I'm trying to spread the word there. Next slide. Again, I've said this, so homeowners and renters, we can go past that. We can go past nonprofits. And the idle loan, disaster loan, those are our common one that goes up to 2 million. And the loan terms are particularly good. So I just do want to mention that they're up to 30 years. And also they have a pretty low interest rate at 4%, which is pretty exceptional. Next slide.
And that is.
Okay, excellent. So I went through that really quickly. All of this information, again, is available on SBA.gov, but please feel free to call my office if you have any questions. Back to you, Chris.
Thank you, Willette. And a question that was in the chat and just answered, but also I'll answer it now here, that this slide deck will be made available to those who are on the call and who registered as well. So all this information will be available to you. So we've kind of come from, where do you need to start? Where do your small businesses need to start? They need to be financially ready. They need to have that strong business capability defined so that they know where they're beginning and where they want to go as they prepare to meet their customers' needs. But just talking to the bank is part of it, but also talking to your future and current customers is critical as well. So another major tool and value that organizations like WBDC provide and SBA is making sure that these small businesses know how to pitch. And so this moment, and we have just kind of doing a time check, we have roughly 10 more minutes left in this hour, is a chance for us to talk about those critical things that you should expect from your small suppliers to be able to do. And if you think that your supply chain might benefit in getting some practice on how to, best pitch yourselves, I can think nobody better than WBDC in the Chicagoland area, and SBA for that matter as well, to support in this moment. So with that, stealing a little bit from the movie Pitch Perfect, what are the elements of, a great pitch?
Yeah. Thank you. We've been working with our clients really intentionally on pitch improvements for the last 8 years, since 2017, when we heard from a lot of our corporate partners that they were very frustrated that small businesses were just not able to effectively communicate. We do this in any number of ways. What this is just kind of one summary slide, but we, and what is a good pitch for you as a buyer is going to depend on what you're buying and all that. But here's kind of just the summary that we tell people if they're doing a 1, 2, 3 minute pitch. So start with the hook.
And Karen, if you don't mind, if I could just jump into,
yeah, please.
As we're talking about pitching to a company as a sales representative, nobody on this call is a sales representative, to my knowledge. But every room that we walk into, we are always selling, whether it's ourselves, whether it's the program that we represent. I'm a category manager, so I'm representing procurement. These best practices aren't just for suppliers to try to win business. These are best practices for us as professionals to better communicate what we need from a relationship, from a moment, from a meeting. So I just want to kind of frame that opportunity as well before we dive in.
Yeah, thank you. No, I think that's quite right. So, you want to get the listener's attention. Okay, you can go ahead to the next.
Indeed.
And then, obviously an introduction. Then the next is going to be really more focused on what you do. It is remarkable to me how often people are unable to articulate that in a succinct way. But you have to be able to do that. Then the next kind of gets into some credibility. Honestly, this is more important, frankly, I mean, just bluntly, for small businesses in general, but also small businesses owned by women and people of color, and particularly women of color. But really, we encourage people to try to, describe what is it? Why should you take me seriously? Next, please. And then we encourage our business owners to talk about some success stories, not necessarily long, drawn out things, but we worked with, US Cellular to help them improve whatever process they hired us to help them improve, and we saved them, 3% in time, or whatever it is, right? So what is a success story? And really focusing on the client's or the target's needs. I mean, it really is all about the target and not about me or about
Mhm.
the person speaking. And then I think we have one last little point, just what are we asking? And that sometimes can be very difficult, right? If I'm a small business person and I want to sell to US Cellular, I mean, so I introduce myself to Chris, I tell him how wonderful I am. We've done all this stuff for AT&T and, whoever, Verizon, whoever else. And then I stop. And then Chris is like, well, what is it that you really need me to do, Karen? I mean, don't make me have to think about it, because frankly, I'm talking to 200 other small businesses today, and I'm going to focus on the ones where I can make an impact. So, that's just kind of really high level, one sort of, one of our kind of curriculum is too strong a word, but one of our decks that we work with
Yeah.
businesses on. But like, for instance, the one, we in Top Shelf today, we're talking about much more granular things, some general pricing. Who's the target market for my consumer packaged good product? Why should, whether it's Target or Walgreens or whoever it is, why should they want me on their shelf? So
Mhm.
and that's we do that one-on-one, we do it in workshops, we do it in practice sessions, we do it as part of our cohorts. So that's
Yeah.
that's what we do.
So what I'm hearing you say, Karen, is impactful. And essentially it's, you should be able to say who you are, what you do, who you do it for, and how I can do it for you, and make it as easy as possible. And this is kind of a pitch. So sometimes this is a capability presentation, takes 30 minutes to get through. Sometimes you've got 5, maybe 10 minutes max, and you've got to be well rehearsed to be able to understand what is said and what needs to be communicated in that time, so that this conversation continues on in a later date.
That's right.
So with that said, we've got roughly 5 minutes left before we close out.
I think Willette had something to add, or
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
if you
did
don't mind,
too.
if
Thank you for the heads up. No, yes.
I think all of the points that Karen just made are absolutely superb. I just wanted to add 3 more for your consideration.
Oh,
So
yes.
to the degree that you can, what you always want to do is know your audience. So if you have the opportunity to research and find out who's in that audience, please do so to the degree that you can. And I understand that oftentimes you may not have that. Why is that important? It's important because you have about 30 to 45 seconds to make a connection. Business is done based upon relationship. It really is not really about how I know that people want to believe that it is, and it to some degree you have to have some substance to it, but it's not who has the fastest whatever, or the the blingiest whatever. It's about relationship. So it's about connecting. So if you do the research and you find out something about me, maybe you find out I went to the University of Maryland, or maybe you find out I like I'm a marathoner or something. If you find out something and make it personal, you connect with me for 30 seconds. What I'm going to do is you're going to pull me in. I'm going to be engaged. So again, do the research to the degree that you can recognize you got 30 to 45 seconds. I said seconds, not minutes, to really, really make an impact and really connect with that person on a personal level. The last thing that I would say is that you want to engage people, and you want one of the things that we all have egos. And the one thing that that you often find about people is that they love giving advice. So yes, make the ask, be specific about the ask, the when, what, how, et cetera, but also invite them to be a part of whatever it is that you're discussing and say, what would you do? What would your recommendation be? And you just be amazed how people will just spout off just a number of things if you invite them to problem solve with you. It could go either way, but I found more likely than not that people love giving advice, but they only will do that if they feel like you've done your homework. So don't just come and say, "Oh, I have this problem and I need you to solve it." That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm telling you that if you engage them and sort of stroke their ego, you will often find that they will have all types of pearls of wisdom that they want to, share with you. And that's it, Chris.
Awesome. Thank you,
I,
Loretta.
I had one additional point. I think when you're doing a pitch, it's always important to say what your company's differentiator is.
Right.
There may be
Mhm.
10 different companies that sell widgets, but why are the widgets that I'm selling better, quicker, do a better job? You know, what differentiates your company more than another company? So as I'm thinking about you, I can think, oh yeah, that's the one that had the nuts and the bolts that worked better than everybody else.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And then as we have like 3 minutes, probably 2.5 left, Brandon did ask a question specifically about SBA. So I'll read it from the chat. How do we make sure we avoid scam loan agencies? Specifically, he signed up on a site that he thought was SBA, received it through an email, and it turned out to be a Stanford loan application database. Now I get daily calls and texts from random loan agents. How do we spot these scams early to make sure that we're working with the real SBA?
Brandon, thank you for that question. So I will end where I started, SBA.gov. So we have all of our lenders listed there. And in the fiscal year 2024, we had 2,736 loans that were administered for approximately 1.5 billion. And so those loans were made by, I don't have the exact number of lenders, but we have over 2,000. So that's why we put on our website the list of lenders and also the matchmaking. So I would strongly encourage you to do that. And because you're asking the question, there are bad actors out there right now that are trying to perpetrate fraud utilizing our COVID idle borrowers. So right now, and that I literally just found this out yesterday. So if you have or any of your clients have taken out a COVID idle loan, there are bad actors right now that are sending emails and they're requesting additional information, and they're indicating that there is a forgiveness program under the COVID idle loan. There is not such. There was under PPP. So the best way to do it is call my office if you suspect that there might be some type of fraud, or if you want to verify it, excuse me, or you can go to the SBA.gov website as well.
And Brandon, I would say that some of those random loan agents may be complete fraud. I mean, it's annoying enough to just have people call you that you don't want to talk to. I put just a link in the chat to another federal government resource for small business cybersecurity. I mean, that's a whole different topic, but just really be careful. Always look over, hover over a link, hover over a link on your laptop. You can't do it on a phone, so do it on a laptop. Make sure it's like an SBA.gov URL that you're getting the email from, and all of that too. But there's some really good resources here at the NIST .org or .gov website.
I'll ensure to add that into the slide deck before we send it out.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And
Quick
speaking of
question, I'm so sorry, but this is just super helpful for me. I've been dealing with this problem for quite a long time, but then now that you guys are saying that, I'm also wondering if any of them, first, if any of them were actually legitimate, right? Considering there are so many people out there. But then can you just briefly tell me, if I go onto the website, sign up and say, I would like a loan or I would like a grant or whatever from SBA, what is the process? Do I wait to get reached out to by someone, or do I set up, what happens?
What I would recommend, Brandon, because most of the time this stuff is not going to be a direct SBA service, as Willette said, the SBA itself does not make you a loan. They work through a bank to make you a loan. I would recommend you just take a look at our website, wbdc.org. I'll put up the access to capital link, and then you can make an appointment with one of our advisors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Also, here's the QR code that we're presenting right now for resources to WBDC as Karen puts out that website. And I just want to say thank you. This has been such a quick hour. The deep depths of my heart, thank you to Willette, Georgia, and Karen for this opportunity. Thank you, everyone, for helping making sure that this event ran smoothly and we set this up. I know that we have 1 o'clock, so more thank yous to be given in the future, but appreciate your time today and look forward to being in touch.
Thank you.
So nice to see everybody. And Chris, thank you so much. Nice to meet you all.